Hey guys, Jason here, and I'm coming at you with a bit of bad news. As some of you are aware, I've chosen to step down from my position as co-host of the Game Tenants Podcast. It's not something that came as an easy decision. It's something I've been thinking about and honestly trying to avoid for quite a while now. But unfortunately, YouTube and the podcast are just not something I have time for in my life right now. I'm overly busy with all types of stuff, work, family, the usual. And I find that I don't even have time to play the games that I love talking about. And I want to be more dependable as a co-host and a content creator in general, but I find that I'm just too sporadic, having to force it, and then I finally figured that it's time to cut the cord and leave my position vacant for another co-host. And from what I hear, you guys are in store for an awesome co-host, as Justin is a hilarious guy and knows a shit ton about games, so he'll fit right in here with Church. I wish you guys the best, and this is not goodbye forever. This is just goodbye for a little while. As soon as I find that I've got time, I would love to come back. And honestly, I could come back as a guest anytime if they'll have me. And thanks for all the memories and the opportunity to entertain you guys, and I'll hopefully be back sooner rather than later. Goodbye for now.
You're listening to the Game Tenants Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Game Tenants Podcast, the failed adventures of two gamers and their quest for Gamecast stardom. This is episode 54, and I am Church of the Game Grinder, and have some news that some might have heard about, most probably haven't heard, but Jason of Corpse Flood Gaming unfortunately had to step down from the podcast. He's kind of talked about it before, that he just doesn't have the time, family, jobs, and whatnot. Will definitely say there's absolutely, no bad blood between me and Jason. We're still good friends. He just, doesn't have the time for the podcast. So with that said, was figuring out who I wanted to bring onto the podcast to kind of keep the torch going. And I couldn't think of anybody better than my friend Justin, aka Cardboard Zero. So thank you for joining on the podcast.
Not a problem, man. How's it going?
It is going excellent. Really great to have you here. Many of you might not be familiar with him, if you watch some of my videos, I've mentioned Justin before. He was one of the guys that I went to Midwest Gaming Classic 2018 with. And I've mentioned him before in some pickup videos. Good friend of mine. We've been friends for like 2-3 years at this point, I think. Somewhere around there.
About that.
And I personally think you're a great guy. When we hang out, we basically shoot the shit and talk about video games. So I was like, you know what, we can just record it, which is essentially what the Game Tenants Podcast has been since the beginning. So yeah. So then again, I just want to say a huge thanks to Jason for taking the time out of your life to join in on the podcast. And of course, you are always welcome to join us for an episode when you got the time. He knows that. We've already talked about this. So then I guess as we were kind of talking a little bit before the podcast, I thought it would be kind of fun to talk about who is Justin, kind of, as you said, your street cred. Just so you're like, who the hell is this, random guy coming on here?
Who's this scrub?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I guess so. Kind of like, what's your like gaming history? Kind of like, where'd you start? Where are you at now? Like, where are your focuses? And just
No, sure. I do have to correct you. You mentioned me, and I remember a couple of the videos specifically where you're like, I don't think you mentioned me my name, but you said, one of my very good buddies gave me some stuff.
Yeah, and some pickup videos. I think. Yeah, I did. Initially, I started out not mentioning anybody by name, just because I didn't want to like invade anybody's privacy, because I never asked permission like initially, and then eventually I asked about it. So good correction.
No, it's fine because I'm just like, oh hey, that guy, that friend, mentioned me. I'm happy. I'm on a podcast. My gamer tag is Cardboard Zero. My buddy came up back when we were transitioning from PS2s to Xbox 360s. He's like, you got to choose a gamer tag. I'm like, what's a gamer tag? He's like, it's like your name on your account. So when you play games and you're online, people can see you and they can friend you. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, name.
Yeah, exactly. Up until then, I didn't do a ton of PC gaming. I did a little bit here and there, like Counter-Strike and stuff like that back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what should I call myself? And he made me a list of these names, and the original name was going to be Cardboard Hero. And I'm like, that sounds awesome. I like that. And I tried typing in, it's like, this name has been taken. I'm like, oh, I really liked it. So he's like, just change Hero to Zero. I'm like, sure, sounds good. So that's how I got my screen name. I guess I'm middle aged, and my older brother for Christmas one year got a NES set back when that was like, oh my goodness, we got an NES in the house, and it was the worst mistake my parents ever made.
Yeah,
my older brothers were in sports, and I stayed in the basement playing Nintendo.
I think a lot of us can commiserate there.
And so my brother would go rent video games back when renting was a thing. You guys remember that? Huh?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So he would stay up with his friends really, really late, and then they would sleep in while I was younger, and I would have to sneak in, see what games they rented. I mean, like, I'm like, I don't know, 5, 6, trying to figure out how to play Black Bass or Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior for, us in the States and stuff. And then he'd wake up and be like, get out of here. We're going to play again. So I just kind of grew up playing Nintendo, and, as you get older, you meet friends. And so, hey, you have a Sega. What's that? I have a Nintendo. You should come over.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the first games I remember playing that I don't know why I was magnetized to was Ultima Exodus on the Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a 5-year-old trying to figure out this complex RPG and stuff. It's not Mario where you just jump on the Goombas and get to the end of the stage. And ever since I played that game, like, RPGs have been a very integral. I love RPGs first and foremost. So,
yep, I can confirm.
Yeah, you've seen my stuff. It's if I have a lot of one thing, it's RPGs on many consoles. So,
yes.
But no, I mean, so I like Resident Evil. I like a lot of the Marios. The Tomb Raider series is really good. I play a lot of that. I kind of play a little of everything. I'm not I'm not big into sports games. I'm not a sports guy myself, but I mean, Blades of Steel or like
Tecmo
NBA
Super
Jam.
Bowl.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Classics.
Those games I can play, but like, you want to play some Madden 18? No.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Yeah. I'll definitely say that since I've known you, you do seem to play a pretty wide variety of games. But yeah, as you said, like, RPGs is your go-to.
That's my jam, as they would say.
And with that too, you are also a collector.
If that's what we call ourselves, sure.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of video games, I guess. I mean, do we really need to label each other? But
I mean, technically, some people could call it hoarders, but yeah, I like collectors. It has a nicer ring to it.
Yeah, and a pretty awesome collection, I think. Kind of have like the whole coverage of RPGs from NES to current.
Mm-hmm.
really the big focus there. Pretty wide range of consoles. Like you play pretty much, you got not much bias there when it comes to platforms. I think you're all over the place like I am.
Yeah, I mean, except for some older Ataris, just because.
Yeah.
I just don't want to have a TV that's old enough to play them. I mean,
yes.
no Atari hate. I love Atari. I grew up with that too. But, you got to get the switcher box, and then it's only through coax, and then it just looks like crap. And then they don't look good on our, newer flat screen TVs.
Yeah, and there's plenty of collections for current gen that you can pick up for Atari and stuff too.
Yeah, those
or you can just get the VCS or the VCS.
Is that like multi-tiered new system I saw a picture of?
Yeah, it's been like embroiled in controversy since it was announced.
I'm just like, cool idea, but
yeah, $300.
If it works, it's kind of like anything. How do you put a price on something like that? If it works, good. But if it's, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, cool. So I guess then with that, we can kind of move into what we've been up to, basically what we've been playing, any other interesting mentions you have. So I guess what have you been playing recently?
Well, I'm sadly an MMOer, and not because it's sad to play them. It's just if you're any kind of, dedicated MMOer, you spend more time on it than you should. And so I play a lot of Final Fantasy 14.
Yep.
I have a good group of friends on there I play with. We do raiding and other stuff. So, and there's always stuff to do, crafting or farming dungeons for cool mounts that only drop out of there, and stuff like that. So that takes up, I'd say, a medium amount of my time.
Any measurement that you can provide for anybody who might be familiar with 14? Like, is level the measurement, or like how do you say, oh, I'm this cool? How cool are you in 14?
I'm as cool as they get. All right. I'm the poster child for cool. But no, I mean, like, I got all my jobs to 70. So I rating, if people don't know what that is, it's usually like end game content, and there's like super difficult bosses that you need. Final Fantasy does an 8-man party for raiding.
Mm-hmm.
So, you usually have like 2 tanks, which are people that draw the damage to them so they don't hit the healers, and then damage dealers. So I do a lot of end game content like that, raiding, and I craft, make money, and then do other fun stuff, like I say, like farm exotic mounts that you can only get out of certain places, and it's an RNG drop rate.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people that, like, I get bored. I'm like, well, I got this job leveled. I guess I'll start on that job.
Yeah, as long as you enjoy it. I don't hate on MMOs. I used to play WoW. I've been interested in other ones. I can't commit to that sort of time. Like 14, once they put out the Realm Reborn, like, I thought it looked pretty cool, but it's like, so many other games I want to play.
It is. You either have to decide you're going to play that. I mean, because I can understand how people feel like I don't have 4 hours a night, 5 to 6 days a week, because then people feel like they fall behind in content, which is nice because Final Fantasy doesn't really do that. I mean, you can, if you don't get on and play
MMOs casually. I mean,
exactly.
A lot of people do.
Because there's level sync. So, like, let's say you started playing tomorrow, you're like, oh, I'm going to give it a try. You can be a level 15 and do a dungeon, and I can come in with my high level character, and my character will level sync to you, and then my stats get adjusted to that level too. So I can come with you and help you and do all this, older content, and you don't have to feel like, well, there's no one here. All the high levels don't want to help. Nope. They made roulettes and stuff that give bonuses if you help, newer players and stuff. So
sweet.
So it's kind of nice that way. I played the Bloodstained, that 8-bit release version before
Curse of the Moon.
Oh, I know you suggested to it, and I played it, and I loved it. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's. I might have said it before, but dare I say I liked it more than Castlevania 3.
Oof. I mean, I can see why. I mean, well, I like what we're getting lately out of that kind of these like retro, like pixel, but they're like HD pixel games. And it's like, I wish more companies would do these.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Right. They in so many aspects, they try to stick to the original form, but they're not necessarily constrained by limitations, so they can do like more sprite animations, more detailed backgrounds and stuff like that, and it's just elevates them that much more. But of course, when looking at a game like Castlevania 3, you have to keep in mind of the limitations. I mean, it's a great game. I'm not knocking Castlevania 3. It's more of a,
of course, yeah.
I mean, I still love it, but yeah, Curse of the Moon, fantastic. Did you just play it through one time? Got the main ending? Did you try?
Yeah, I just played it through. When you're rotating so many different games, because I'm trying to play other things too. Right. But so I do want to dig into it more, because it's a fun game. Like it's just like saying like, oh, you know what, tonight I feel like playing Castlevania 3. You can pop it in, play as long as you want, and you're done. Yeah. Same thing with that. But one of the things I really loved was some of the options you set up before you play. Like, do you want the knockback when you get hit, or do you want to just get stunned? I was like, that's really cool. Yeah. You're giving me the option if I want it to be super old school hard, or not so much. I want to just enjoy my experience.
And even on Veteran, I thought it was pretty fair. I mean, you still had the knockback and stuff, but like they're pretty gracious with like free lives. And I think when I finished the first initial normal playthrough on Veteran, I think I had like 8 or 9 lives left when I finished.
Nice.
But I'm super pro, so
brush that dirt off your shoulders.
Yeah, right. But that I definitely encourage really anyone who's played Curse of the Moon to play through it on. Once you beat the game the first time, it unlocks Nightmare, which almost sounds like a difficulty thing, but it's not. It's just like the second playthrough, and you can still choose normal or veteran difficulty, but it essentially continues kind of the story, and then the end level, and especially the end boss. Like the end boss is like probably the coolest thing in all of Curse of the Moon for me, anyways. So it's definitely worth that second playthrough, because it kind of changes up some of the story a little bit too.
Well, now I'm kind of excited to get back at it.
Yeah. It's neat because, I mean, a $10 game that was just kind of like a little extra bonus for, it was a Kickstarter reward. I had a certain tier, and what they provided for $10 is quite the experience. I mean, it looks like they put some time and passion into it. You got 5 different endings if you want to go all out. There's like the boss rush stuff. Like it's pretty packed little package there.
Well, I mean, and even like you say, for a Kickstarter, tier reward, I mean, that's pretty darn good, because a certain Blue Bomber successor, I guess, didn't quite do as good.
Right.
For all the money they got. Cough, cough.
Yep.
Yeah, no. So I played that. I enjoyed it. I'll definitely get more into that. Kind of late to the game. Like, it's one of as we all know, our backlogs. We all have one. We all know them. I started playing Rise of the Tomb Raider because I'm trying to get ready for the new Tomb Raider coming out soon.
Excellent.
Took a little bit to get familiar with the controls again. I'm like, oh, that's how this plays. All right, and then back at it like I was playing the first one, and I love them. Absolutely love it. I'm maybe like 4 or 5 hours in, but they do such a good job at those games. The two new Tomb Raiders are such a nice breath of fresh air, because with so many of these different remasters and remakes coming out, you kind of have to be like, roll the dice if it's good or not. And I think
for sure,
reinventing Lara Croft and the Tomb Raider series the way they have, as kind of reinvigorated that, because it used to just be like, oh, look at her big boobs and she shoots dinosaurs, which isn't a bad thing.
I think that's a gross oversimplification. It'd be more. I mean, the original Tomb Raiders are more. I mean, yeah, like she had big boobs, to like giant pixels, or no, not pixels, polygons.
Mhm.
But like they were really all about, it was puzzle platforming,
Sure.
which is something that I do kind of miss, because the originals were very puzzle focused. Find this object, these
True.
switches. And the old ones were like tough as hell too. Almost like, it was almost like they were kind of like the next iteration of sort of like games like Prince of Persia in a way. There's a lot of shared elements there, but that's something that I do kind of miss with the reboots, is a little of the puzzle elements and some of the danger of the platforming, but at the same time, like some of that stuff was the more frustrating elements, especially the platforming, where like these something like Uncharted or even the new God of War, like how it's like you're very magnetic, like you just look at the thing and you kind of jump. I do like that, because then they can do the camera angles and kind of make it a cool event to be climbing this instead of a test of patience and skill.
Well, and I think, like you're saying, like especially like it's been years since I played them, but like the original Tomb Raider, like sometimes you're like, is that a jumpable surface? So you spend like 20 minutes, like, okay, apparently that's just a wall. I thought I could get up there, but it's not.
Graphics didn't help. Then, but yeah, there's a lot of leaps of faith. That was for sure.
And so people are going to see a theme here. It's going to sound ridiculous, but I also play a mobile game on my phone called Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. And it is, at the end of the day, yes, it's still a gacha game where, spend money to try to get the characters you want. But it's a love letter to all the Final Fantasy series. So you have a party you make up and you go through stages and fight monsters, but it actually has a really good story. And I would say it's one of the better games that has a premium currency, but gives you a ton of stuff for free. Like right now they're celebrating their 2nd anniversary, and just for logging in, you get all these summon tickets, all this free premium currency and all this other stuff. But it's a love letter, because I mean, like, you have your party members, what they call visions. You have Nier Automata in there. You have, we just got our Sephiroth and Final Fantasy VII banner like a month or two ago. I have characters from Final Fantasy 6, 5, 4. I have, Trance Terra. And you actually have to strategize it out, because you have your tanks, you have your healers, you have your damage dealers, and so it's not just click one button for, like, no, there's a lot going on. So I actually spent a lot of time playing that. It's a pretty good game. I suggest people check it out. Doesn't cost anything. It's a free app, and then it's one of those, if you want to spend money, that's on you.
Yeah.
But you can play the game just fine with what they give you.
Yeah, just don't give in is usually what I tell people.
Yeah.
Just have patience. Just have patience.
Exactly. And then the other thing I've been playing a lot lately is the Dark Souls Remaster on my PS4.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and unfortunately I didn't alert you to the fact that I was playing it, so we weren't able to.
Oh, we can still play it. I still have a couple left things to do. I can summon you in and be like, go kill that thing while I take a nap here or something.
So did you play the original?
Yes, I have I beat it on the 360 back in the day.
Any thoughts comparison wise, like
60 frames per second. Yay!
Yeah. I mean, not much else has changed really. They gave you a little better resolution and whatnot, but
I have to say, in my experience, like, I've played Dark Souls 2, I played Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, so I love the series as a whole. I will have to say though, I remember when I got put it in the PS4, started playing it, I'm like, oh, okay, this is really nice, it's smooth. I actually was taken back because I was so used to the low frame rate and lag, of how kind of like slow and janky it was on the 360.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't terrible. I mean, it was obviously playable, but with 60 frames per second in the PS4, I was like, whoa, I'm actually not used to you attacking that fast. So I kind of had to relearn a little bit of the combat, like, oh, that's your pattern now because you're quicker.
Yeah, and I believe I heard that they did some like minor changes with like combat. I don't really know much about it, but I think there was some like very minor changes.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, a lot of the people in the community thought they were gonna like, oh, this is their chance to really make this a better version, because a lot of people didn't like the PC release of it.
Yeah.
Then they made the, what is it? Is it the Born to Die edition or just the Blackest edition or whatever?
Prepare to Die.
Oh, thank you. And then that didn't fix half the problem. So, obviously the community stepped in and went, mod the heck out of it, make it the way we want it. But I didn't like, at least PS4 wise, because I haven't played it I have the original version on PC that I've played, but I thought they kind of jacked the lighting. It seems like areas are way darker.
Yeah,
than the older console. Like I said, the 360 was like an area would be dark, but once you like got in, it's like adjusting from like going outside to inside. Like if it's bright outside and you go inside your house, it's like, oh, it takes a little bit for your eyes to adjust again.
Yeah, definitely, especially in the where what I forget what the what's that under the bridge area that you kind of skipped, I think is what you said, with all the platforms and crap going down into the
Blighttown.
Yes, thank you. Blighttown, and even like the boss area for Qualag or Kulag, whatever, the spider chick.
Mm-hmm.
Like even when you're just running through that area, because you do it a bunch of times because you have to backtrack a bunch.
Yep.
Like even when you're just running through her boss area, like it gets dark and it'll get bright and it'll get dark. And I think that's how they try to fix the frame rate issues, because I think Blighttown was like, that was infamous for being like just terrible for frame rates.
Oh yeah.
And it did that a lot. That was really the first time that really stood out to me when I was playing. I think it happens like before you get there, like it just will get darker, it'll get brighter. But that area in particular, like as soon as I got there, like there was even points where I was like struggling to see, like I'm like, I'm standing next to fire here. The area is lit up, but like I can't see like right outside the like the aura of the fire because it got so dark. And it kind of made it like the lack of vision like really was frustrating at times, but it did kind of heighten the danger of the area for me, at least being my first time playing through it. But I think probably a lot of just the general frustrations with Blighttown is just because that area sucks. Because
that was your first time. The remaster is your first time playing through?
Yes.
Oh wow, that's cool. Well, I'm glad you gave it a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I played Dark Souls. Dark Souls 3 was my first one, and then I played Bloodborne earlier this year, and now I've played the remaster, and yeah, absolutely love it. And the remaster, like Dark Souls 1, even going back and losing some of the minor changes, innovations that they did, like it, absolutely fantastic. Like those games, level design is amazing. Like the combat, I love the combat. I love the challenge. I mean, they're great. The lore, I mean, nothing but praise.
I mean, especially for Dark Souls 1, a lot of people, I think, either don't realize or they forget that except for parts of the game, because I know a lot of people complain like, oh, the load times on this thing is atrocious. But here's the thing. Once you load the game up, everything is loaded.
Yeah.
Like you start off at Firelink Shrine, you can go all the way to the Tomb of the Giants, and there's no, you're going to the next area. Hold on, loading. No, it's seamless. So you basically have the whole world, except when you have to warp to like New Orlando or if you later in the game when you can bonfire warp, there's no loading. What game have you played in the last 5 years does that?
Yeah, and that's part of like with the level design, just like the general game design, stuff like that is really makes it great, because if you're constantly like having to load between every area, that just kind of like it kills the the anticipation, the build up.
Well, and the momentum too, yeah. So let me ask you. I'm curious now. I know they say a lot of people when they get into a series and they're like, oh, like let's take like Resident Evil. For me, when people go, "What's your favorite Resident Evil?" I have to say, I like a lot of them. There's a couple obviously that I like less, but Resident Evil 1, and it's because it's what got me into it. I was 13, I bought Resident Evil, and I'm like, I remember, I mean, it scared me. I would like run to my bedroom at night because my room was in the basement, so like after I'd go to the bathroom, I'd dash to my room because I thought a tyrant would come walking around the corner. But that got me into it, and I'd have to say it's not the best one, but it's my favorite one.
Mm-hmm.
Is Dark Souls 3, since that was is that your favorite out of them since you've played most of them now?
I guess so, but it's not for this specific instance. I really feel like it's not because I played that one first.
Okay.
I try to not. That's one thing I try not to do when it comes to like, especially game series. There's definitely first bias. Like it can even happen with like bands. Like you discover a new band, you listen to this album, you're like, oh my god, this is so good, and then everybody else is like, no way, dude, that's not even their best album. You gotta listen to this one. And you're like, no. I don't know. There could be some like subconscious bias there because it was my first, but it's really tough. I mean, I love them all, but I guess if I had to pick, it would be the first one, or the third one. I mean, because like some of the levels, I like some of the levels a little bit more. Like I mean, a lot of levels are actually the same as Dark Souls 1, even just kind of redone. But
I agree with you, though. I mean, I would say 1 just because it got me into the series, and maybe on another time I'll tell you my story of my love-hate with that game. Because I'll leave it with this, is that it's the only game that I was reading up on. I was reading all the, like, I had Game Informer, and I'm reading internet reviews of, they're like, oh, this is a challenging game that, is you feel accomplished when you finally beat a boss or get past an area. Yeah, after the first 2 hours of my first time playing it, I actually emailed the company demanding a refund because I'm like, I finally beat the first boss, like the tutorial boss to get into the game. I'm like, I've been working on this for, and I wrote them a letter and nothing came of it. They never responded, but that's the first time I've ever been angry enough to write someone and be like, I don't feel accomplished. Like everybody tells me I'm supposed to. But
for me, it was like almost the opposite, but just because I kind of knew a little bit more what to expect, because I had some other close friends that were like really big into the series before I started playing it. So a lot of time, like things like that, the challenge, like it just kind of builds determination, and it's like, my ego can't take the defeat, so I just have to keep going. And I've talked about this every time I've talked about one of the From Software games that I've played, is that, I mean, they're not my favorite games. I love them. I mean, that they are some of my favorite games, but there's like many, many, many games that like I would definitely pick over the From Software games.
Sure. But
there's something specifically about the Souls or the Bloodborne that just clicks with my ability, I don't know, addiction, I guess. Like I binge so hard on those games that I just don't do it normally, but something with those games just clicks with me, and I can't stop, and
they make you want to be a better gamer.
I just can't stop playing them. Like I start to neglect other things. Like there's definitely a drastic drop in like how much YouTube I was watching or how much time I was just spending on the internet. It's like, instead of doing that, I could be playing Dark Souls right now. And I don't do that. Like I said, I don't do that with other games. Like, I'm constantly playing games I love, like discovering new games, but I don't know. It's just that motivation or something. It just kicks my endorphins in the right way.
Well, and to finish up I kind of went on a little offbeat there, but like how you said, like the level design and stuff of those games, like I will say, like I remember the first time playing through Dark Souls 3, and that when you finally come out of that, like, that giant, after the boss, the giant, so you have to break his shackles, and then, then he goes back in the darkness. But when you enter that, like, moonlit city where Pontus Sullivan is,
Yeah.
like, you're coming down that out of the cave down the mountain, and you just see the whole city. I was like, I just kind of stood there and looked at it. I'm like, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know more about this city that's kind of like trapped in time under the moonlight. Like, they really do capture wonder in some of their level designs.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other games you've been playing recently? Or is that about it?
As of what I've been playing, I mean, that's about it. And I have a new one I'm starting because me and you are in some of the same groups in the Facebooks. And I saw that one of our groups put up the Summer RPG Challenge.
Yeah.
So I started thinking, I'm like, what game should I play that I haven't played in a while that I'd love to? And I was tossing it up between Final Fantasy VI and Suikoden 2. And I think I'm leaning towards Suikoden 2.
Okay.
So that might be the new game I start up for the Summer RPG Challenge.
Awesome.
Because this year they have a prize.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, because I think they did it last year too, right?
Yep, they do it every summer. They just said this is the first year.
I didn't participate last year.
Yeah, it's... So have you thought about what game you might play, or are you participating this year?
Yeah, and actually this can kind of go into what I've been up to lately. So
what's up?
Most recently, what I am playing was something that I've been thinking about for a while, but I was like, I saw that and I was like, it was a good timing. I just finished up playing another game, so I decided to go with Seiken Densetsu 3, aka Secret of Mana 2.
Excellent game.
I've never played it before. I've had the repro for a while. One of our local friends provided that for me a while back, and it's kind of been sitting behind me for a long time, just kind of beckoning to be played. So especially with my like renewed love for the series because of the remaster, I was like, I'm gonna jump into this, and then maybe that will finally push me to play Legend of Mana, because I've had Legend of Mana for many years, and I've had some other friends say that I really should play that, among many other RPGs that I still need to play.
That's the PS1 one, if I'm correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But Seiken Densetsu 3, I'm enjoying it. I don't know. And this is actually one of those instances where I wonder, do I prefer Secret of Mana or Seiken Densetsu 2, whatever you want to call it, Secret of Mana? Do I prefer that more because it does have that nostalgia factor because I played it first? Or do I just feel it's a better game? Seiken Densetsu 3 is kind of, in some aspects, it's more of the same. Not big changes to the gameplay. They do a little bit more with the story. They kind of take it a little bit more of a serious swing to it. Mm-hmm. There's essentially there's 6 characters you can play as. You get to pick the 3 characters that you'll get during your playthrough, and your primary character, whichever pick you pick, is like kind of a story arc that kind of intros the story and affects like the end boss that you fight, and there's 3 different ones depending on like 2 varieties of characters. Mm-hmm. That's pretty neat. How they can kind of change like a good a couple hours actually of gameplay to just give you this completely different thing to introduce you to eventually the same story. And there's a couple things they throw in throughout that would be different. I'm pretty far. I'm actually getting pretty close to the end.
Nice.
I will say, like, the last few hours I've been playing did get a little tedious because, much like the other ones, you're kind of going for these, different mana stones, and you have to do 8 different dungeons, and then eventually you have to do go back to these places and do bosses again, and then you have to do these other bosses, and it's like this boss after boss after boss, not like in succession, but it gets a little tedious, I guess. Not as much adventure between those parts towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure there'll be a pretty awesome payoff. I just thought like it wasn't even like necessarily like the fight itself wasn't cool, but the boss was really awesome. It was like you have to fight the mana beasts and in this one, and like you get the initial ones and then you have to find this other one, and just how they did the battle where it was more just kind of a static enemy, and you're in a little spot in the middle of the screen and there's like two heads on the side and then another head appears. It's just really wicked. Like they went all out with like the sprite work on those. And
who did you what characters did you choose for your party members?
I went with the wizard, Angela, because cute girls, pixel girls, I guess. And then of course I'd take Lise, who is the Valkyrie. Get my girl power going, and then just to round out my circle of inclusion, I picked Duran, who is kind of like the main warrior character. Yep. Which I then, after I'd already started playing the game and I went back to read some information, I think if I would have picked him second, that there would have been additional story elements between him and Angela, but it sounds like because I picked him third, the second character gets like the secondary story bit.
Okay.
Which is kind of interesting. But pretty well-rounded team. I don't have a great healer, but I make it work so far.
Excellent.
So working on that. I also was playing I finished Detroit Become Human.
Ooh.
Which you just kind of like recently learned about.
Yep.
By the sounds of it, right?
Yeah, no, I scoped on the old internets and saw a couple reviews, and it looks absolutely amazing.
And I will definitely second that it is, at least in my opinion. For anybody who might not be familiar, this is another Quantic Dream game. Quantic Dream kind of does very, very story-focused games. A little lighter on the gameplay. They did Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, Beyond Two Souls, Indigo Prophecy. I thought Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls were great games. I know Beyond Two Souls was a little bit more diversive with what people thought about it. I thought the story was pretty interesting. Gameplay is very similar throughout these games. A lot of kind of like quick time choice. There's a lot of choice, dialogue options. You do like control your characters and you'll interact with things. So, I mean, I really wish people wouldn't. I see a lot of people who just the game, they don't like the games, and that's fine. Like, not every game's for everybody, but they're like, oh, there's no gameplay. They're just literally movies, which I strongly disagree about, because as long as you have the interaction, I think it's a full-fledged video game. I mean, Super Mario Brothers, you hold right and you press A. Pong, you move up and down. Like, does the amount of controls, warrant a game? Where I would say for maybe the lack of like crazy controls, you're not like flipping and dodging around, but you're definitely making like very important choices. A lot of times, like, you gotta make this like very important choice. Like, holy crap, there's not a black and white answer here, and like they give you a little time bar because you're doing a story event, and the choices. And that's kind of the big thing with the Quantic Dream games is compared to like something like Mass Effect or Dragon Age, where your choices they kind of matter in some regards. Yeah. Where these games like hugely story sweeping changes, like characters, like your main character can die early in the story and the game continues on, like stuff like that. And just the in particular with Detroit Become Human, I was just more engaged with the story because, for one, I thought the story was a little bit more interesting. It's kind of dealing with the rise of androids in common society. How does society react when you're starting to replace people's jobs with androids, and androids are becoming, more of a common occurrence, and all of a sudden this android is acting like it has free will. How do we handle that? I think it's a very fascinating topic. There's a lot of great movies that covered it, but just they do so well with the writing, the acting. These are actually real actors. They do the mocap and everything, and they're doing the voices. Detroit Become Human actually has a recognizable actor. I always forget his name because he's one of those guys. He's never the main character. He's always a support character in a million movies. He was for some reason, the only one I can ever remember that he was the sheriff in Pet Sematary 2. I believe that's what he was in.
Because one of the videos I watched on it, they did that. They're like, oh, this guy, he's like the one guy you've seen him in a bunch of stuff, but you never remember his name.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to talk about the actor who's the drill sergeant in Starship Troopers. He's
I always forget his name too.
Gracie, I think, or something like that. His name. He has a.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yep.
But no, really, for anybody who if you haven't played a Quantic Dream game, you just got to give it a chance. You got to kind of let go of your preconceived notions, and kind of open up to accept that not every game has to be fast-paced action, whatever. There's still gameplay, and it's very engaging. For me, especially these days, I'm a great story can definitely outweighs great gameplay for me in many regards, and especially games that make me might sound a little silly and stuff, but games that make me feel things. That's what I love. I like to have games elicit emotions. You're
immersed in the story. You're not just I defeated that monster, move on to the next part.
Yeah. I definitely choose, something like Nier Automata over Cuphead. Both amazing games, but the story and all the twists and turns in Nier is that's what I love in my games. I play more, I play gameplay games, but I just like to have a great story. I'll play a game that doesn't have much of a story, especially a lot of retro games. Some of those games have no story, and they're fantastic. But no.
Well, and to add on to that, one of the odd things I would say is a lot of like we were talking beforehand. A lot of people it's not even a game; it's just a movie. Yeah. Yet those will be probably the same people that praise the Telltale series, like The Walking Dead, or those. Yes. And they're like, those games are amazing. Those are the same things. It's just a really good story with quick time event, that do you fight the zombie this way or do you run to the next room? Yeah. Those games are cool, but these ones aren't.
And a lot of times even have you played The Walking Dead, right?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not got around to them.
So even though it's when a lot of the people they're kind of saying these things, I think they have a very basic idea of how the games play. Yes, you do a button command to make a response. Certain times you're walking around, interacting with things, talking to people and stuff. But it's more complex than that. There's a lot more to it. So I definitely say, for the people who, you like a variety of games, but you really just seem turned off by the lack of gameplay or something. I don't know. I really say give it a chance because, as it stands for me anyways, I think Detroit Become Human is probably going to be one of the best games this year.
Okay.
That's my opinion. But then again, I would have said the same thing about Heavy Rain. Not so much Beyond Two Souls. I really enjoyed it, but I did understand its faults. And there were some other games that it went up against that, I thought were vastly superior. But right now, like Detroit Become Human is definitely up there for me. Yeah. So, and then I also played through Axiom Verge finally.
Oh, nice.
Have you played Axiom?
Again, it's another one of those games. I have it. I've got about 4 or 5 hours into it, but can't say no to a good Metroidvania.
Yeah. And I've been wanting to play it for a while. I picked up the Multiverse Edition for the PS4 a little while ago. Just came with like some little extras and stuff. But the Cartridge Club had picked Axiom Verge for the Game of the Month for June. Mm-hmm. So I had finished up. I think I was playing Agony before that, and was looking for something to play. And I was like, you know what? I want to get a little bit more involved, understand a little bit more about this game before they do their episode of the podcast, where they bring some other Cartridge Club members on just to talk about the game for a few hours. And I'm really glad I did, because that's definitely ranks pretty high up there for Metroidvanias. There's others that I think people should definitely check out if you like Axiom Verge. Different presentation. I'm forever going to constantly...
Say it. I know you're going to say it.
Hollow Knight.
Yep.
I loved Hollow Knight. Like, Axiom Verge definitely has that that specifically retro look to it. The pixel look, where Hollow Knight is more hand drawn art style. But no, if you like Metroid, Super Metroid, it's more closer to Super Metroid, I'd say, than original, but it takes elements from both. Absolutely fantastic game. Awesome soundtrack. Another one of those games made by one guy, which it's just mind blowing. One people made this game, or one people.
One people. That's a lot of one peoples.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know it's been out for a while, but better late than never.
And that's cool. I love that there's people out there that they have a passion for that kind of stuff, and it's like, well, I don't have the means, so I'm going to do it myself. And then, I'm glad, I don't know exactly the guy who created, Axiom Verge, but good on him. I'm glad he's going to. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, Thomas, for not knowing who you were, but I'm glad you made this game, because being growing up retro and appreciating the classics where games have, come from, I still find myself like, when Shovel Knight came out, I'm like, oh my God, this game's so amazing. Yes. Why don't we have more? When's the last time, Castle Crashers? I love beat 'em up, side-scrolling beat 'em ups, and I was like, this game's great. Why don't I hope this is popular, and it does become popular. It's like, make more of these types of games, and other companies are like, no, we're not going to do that.
Kind of cool that you mentioned Castle Crashers, because there might be a lot of people who haven't heard of this, but there's actually, I don't know if it's Behemoth. Behemoth was the studio that made Castle Crashers, which was essentially Tom Fulp of Newgrounds, and some other creators. But there's a new game, Johnny Utah. I don't know if you're familiar with the animator. Internet animator. He's kind of involved with Oni NG and Psychic Pebbles, Rice Pirate, a lot of those. I don't know, they're very popular animators, anyways.
Okay.
They're making a new game that they just put out a new trailer for, called Nightmare Cops. It's basically designed by Johnny Utah. I think Tom Fulp, who is the owner of Newgrounds, or the founder of Newgrounds, he's doing the programming, and I can't remember if it was, I think it was maybe Psychic Pebbles that was helping with some of the animations. I'm sure if I sent you some links for some of their animations, you'd be like, oh yeah, I've seen those.
Probably, yeah. Some things I'm not good at remembering.
But yeah, that's something to check out. And it looks sweet. It's kind of like a another like retro inspired beat 'em up, kind of like Castle Crashers in a way. A little bit more crazy. Nightmare Cops.
Yeah,
so,
definitely look into it.
And then I guess for what I've been up to, only other thing I wanted to mention was, and I think it was out when we recorded the last podcast. Usually it's a couple days, so there's usually like a little gap where I'm not sure if I talked about something or not. But the Chris, the old ass retro gamer, put out a video, big collab between a bunch of YouTubers, and I was able to participate in that, and that was another movies that would make great video games part 2, and I was able to participate. So if anybody hasn't seen that, I would definitely recommend checking it out. There are some pretty cool entries on games that would, or movies that could make interesting games. And besides myself, there was John Hancock, Radical Reggie, Jason Corpse Flood was able to participate. So,
awesome,
pretty cool stuff. Yeah,
I felt kind of bad about Chris because on his personal page he posted "Make me choose between 2 movies," and I threw my 2 suggestions at him, and he's like, "I haven't seen either of those." I'm like, "And you watch movies? I think not."
What movies were they?
Sharknado. And an older movie, I think Grindhouse just released it on Blu-ray called Samurai Cop. It's
I'm familiar with Samurai Cop.
Yeah, it's a very cheesy B movie. Yeah. But I'm like, you haven't seen Sharknado? Not even by accident? What's wrong with you?
I hated Sharknado.
What? What's wrong with you?
I like bad like.
Compose yourself.
This is a complicated topic because I'm going to try not to go off on a tangent here, but
sure.
This is so when it comes to those movies that are so bad they're good. There's like kind of 2 ways they're made. Here's a movie that these guys. I mean, typically, here's a guy. He has a vision. He just doesn't have the ability, and he doesn't have the funding or something, and he makes this movie, and it's bad, but turns out to be awesome. Stuff like original Evil Dead, not like a cinematic masterpiece by any means. Awesome movie. And then you have the stuff like Troll 2 and The Room, Birdemic, like just these poor execution.
The Room,
but then you have the movies where they intentionally try to make it bad, and I find a lot of those like Sharknado didn't. I don't know. I feel like there's something to do with the intention of the movie. Like I know they were trying to make a bad movie that was going to be like so bad it's good.
Yeah,
but Sharknado was made by Asylum. Asylum's this production company that have been around for quite a while, and I've seen Asylum movies in the past, so I kind of knew what to expect when I saw Sharknado. And that was a lot of times Asylum makes knockoffs of other movies, just to fill a niche, to try to steal. Especially in the rental days, you go to the video store, you look at the wall of movies. Oh, hey, that kind of looks like Transformers. It's called Transmorphers. Okay, that might be cool. Which was an actual movie that they did. And I don't know. I've never liked anything Asylum did. Sharknado seemed like it could have been an effort where they were trying to do something unique. Maybe there was some passion behind it, but I just felt it was forced. Some of the people that they included, like the dude from, I forget the main character, the guy that was in 90210. I think it was Ben in 90210 or something. And then you had like Tara Reid and stuff. And it's like, yeah, you're trying to pull in some cheap celebrities and stuff, but I don't give a crap about these people.
Well, Tara Reid's on the list, they're like, we got $5 on a Taco Bell gift card. She'll do it. It's
going to be like in 20, 30 years, we're going to be having like, here's these like terrible, like straight to Sci-Fi Channel B movies with Logan Paul and Markiplier or something, and whoever other actors that probably won't be relevant or people won't be relevant, and I don't know. But,
I get what you're saying. It's a funny thought. Like,
yeah, that's a whole nother thing, and I do enjoy watching those like bad good movies. Like I used to do like movie nights where I'd have friends come over and we'd watch Troll 2, or we'd watch, and it's not a bad movie like Hobo with a Shotgun or Pool Boy Drowning Out the Fury, because you can sit around with a bunch of friends and like laugh your ass off at these movies. And
I was gonna say Pool Boy was hilarious.
And Sharknado, I was like, okay, everybody says this movie's crazy, like it sounds ridiculous. And me and a friend watched it, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. But that's me. We all have our own tastes.
I can't argue. I mean, you make a good point. Like they're trying to be so bad. Well, they succeeded. It's just bad in your eyes.
And they must be doing. I mean, Asylum must be doing something right, because they keep making these movies, and it's like, who the fuck watches these movies? But especially with Sharknado, how many there's like 4 of them now, or they're coming out with a 4th one?
Yeah, whatever one's coming out, I think is going to be the absolute last one.
Like,
that's what they say.
Jesus Christ.
But I think it's because it was on Sci-Fi, and it's so ridiculous that it got, it's moved out of like you said, like you brought up Evil Dead. That didn't just become a cult classic when it came out in the theaters. It took years for people to go back and go, what's this movie again?
Yes. And that's another thing too, is I guarantee you 10 years, 15 years from now, when we go back and we check out Sharknado, people will be like, it just doesn't, it doesn't have that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see.
Time will tell. Time will tell.
Absolutely. Like, is it a trend? Is it just kind of like, or is it actually something to it? So
I just think it went too mainstreamy too fast. Now it's almost like a meme. Like, oh, Sharknado, yes. We've all seen that, right?
Yes,
It's lost its independent glamour. But I know.
Yeah, it definitely really embraced kind of like the viral, like marketing aspect, which is maybe another reason why I had issues with it. But whatever. I digress. So I'll rope this back in. So then after our like big little intro what's up section here, before we jump into some like news mentions, as the last few episodes have gone, we are doing a little segment here called Retro Game Highlight, where essentially we're just trying to highlight retro games, because a lot of times we just don't really get to talk about a lot of retro games, because we're usually talking about current games we're playing and some new stuff. So this is our way of, pulling this huge aspect of video games that is near and dear to us and kind of giving it a little bit more attention. We've previously talked about games like Lufia 2, Jackal. Last episode we had BioPhoenix on, and he talked about Hot Wheels Turbo Racing, PlayStation 1. And then I thought it'd be fun, since you're joining us for the first time, and to go ahead and pick a game just to highlight. And just for the listeners, like, these aren't necessarily hidden gems or anything like. It's just like whatever. It can be a hidden gem. It can be whatever. It's just a retro game. You want to say, hey, this is a cool retro game. So what you got for us?
Well, being the new guy and all, I'm glad I'm put on the spot here. But if being an RPG fanatic as I am, I do like going through different communities that are RPG focused, like, Facebook groups and the like, and others, and kind of seeing what gets talked about, And so a lot of the games, like, oh, you hear about Final Fantasy VII, or is it overhyped, yada, yada, this game. So, like, the fact that Jason brought up Lufia 2, it's like, great game. Great, fantastic game. Very, a little grindy, but good. So, thinking about it, I'm like you said, I would call it a little bit of a hidden gem, but it also takes person with patience to call it a gem. And it's a game on Nintendo called Faria, The World of Mystery and Danger. And again, this is one of those games where back in the day when we didn't have the internets to tell us what things were, you know, much like many people when they rented games, they're like, oh, the cover art looks amazing.
Yes.
You got this knight and he's holding out his shield, but apparently he's like 5,000 feet tall because he's standing on the world, and a dragon's blowing fire at his shield. I'm like, cool, I'm sold. I'll rent this. And so what it is, it's a game. It's an RPG that is a blend of random encounters when you're walking around the world map, like Final Fantasy or Dragon Warrior, stuff like that. So as you're watching, all of a sudden, doodle doodle doo, and then goes into your battle, and then it cross plays with like Crystalis and Zelda, where when you're in battle or in a dungeon, you can move freely, you can attack, you can move around. You don't just like, oh, I have done 3 points of damage to the slime. Oh, he hit me back. So you can actually plan out your attacks, and it's a neat little game. I would say it can have a good difficulty factor. You level up, you gain, resources like gold. You have bow and arrow, so like you have a sword to, your little blade comes out to attack enemies. You can stand from afar and shoot them with magic or your bow. And it's one of those old school games, kind of like Swords and Serpents, where the dungeons are very maze-like. So it was like, break out the graph paper.
Yep.
Otherwise, you are going to be going in circles, wondering, have I been here? Have I not been here? Some of the quirks to it that I like are, like Banjo-Kazooie, how like when the animals are talking, they have that like.
Yeah.
This game tried that back in the, I believe this game was released in like '89, but instead of having like, characters have their own little weird sound effect when they talk, you might as well just take the most grating sound you can think of, and it's just grrr. But it's I suggest people, if you want, jump on YouTube, look it up to see any dialogue box. It's just the most grating sound. It's like almost nails on a chalkboard. Like, well, you guys should have just went with text boxes and no audio for talking.
Yeah.
Some of the people that, because you when you talk to people, you actually get like a first person mode of them. So you're overhead moving around like Zelda when you're in towns and stuff. But then when you talk to people, you get a first person of them. Some of the people look downright hideous, and I don't mean like, oh, you're ugly. Like, no, like, are you a demon or a townswoman? I can't tell.
But, yeah, I'm looking at some screenshots right now, and I mean, a lot of the character art looks awesome and kind of interesting. So I wasn't familiar with the company that developed it, Nextsoft, and apparently they put out Castle Quest, which was a game that I actually had when I was younger. My stepmom loved Castle Quest. She played the hell out of that game.
Yep.
They also had Gunnack and Wizardry Proving Grounds.
Yep.
But for the Gunnack deal, they worked with Compile on that, and Compile also did Golvalius. And looking at some of the screenshots, I almost wonder like if maybe there's some programmers or art designers that collabed or something, because there are some similar elements between what I'm seeing in something like Golvalius or even like the Guardian Legend.
Yes. I have the other game. I think it came up before the Guardian Legend, but there's another top-down shooter that, like, a lot of the special abilities you pick up are the ones you pick up in Guardian Legend. And but again, back in the day when you didn't have the internet, to be like, I'm like, I wonder if this is like the same series, or if this, and I think it does tie loosely together, but it's just crazy. I was like, oh, this is made by the same company. This is a joy.
Yeah.
Like, and how you said, like, Compile helped to make it. And for people that don't know, Compile is probably one of the best shump makers.
Yeah.
I mean, they still make games today, and they are fantastic games.
And I never even really did my research on Compile until I was trying to get more information when I played Golvalius. Well, no, actually it was the Randar, kind of like the original Compile mascot was in the Guardian Legend, and then I hadn't played any other Compile games until Golvalius, and I came across the merchant, the Randar, and I was like, holy crap! And then like all of these connected, like I just suddenly had all of these connections, like just like some of like the basic like music tones and like the design of the characters and stuff.
Yep.
And that's when I went and did the research. I was like, holy crap, like wow. And Compile is still technically around, very different now. Now they're Compile Heart.
Yep.
Makes the Neptunia games and some of the kind of like are the like waifu anime games in some regards,
which is a fantastic series. Cause
I have them all. I haven't played the Neptunia games. Well, I have the like mainline ones.
Sure.
I don't think I have V2 or 7 or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's V2. And they probably don't have like the 4 Angels Online, which is like it's kind of like Dot Hack where they simulate being an online
I have 1,
MMO.
2, and 3.
Which are, I mean, I won't go too hard, but it's a fantastic RPG series because it doesn't take itself seriously and it actually makes fun of RPG tropes.
Yeah.
And
that's what my big draw to it, besides like, anime girls and stuff.
What? There's anime girls in that?
Huh?
Oh, I didn't know that. What? Do I own the box set of the Blu-ray anime series of it too? That's so weird.
Is there an anime series?
Mm-hmm. They made a little OVA of it.
Interesting.
I can borrow it to you sometime if you'd like.
Any other thoughts you had on Faria before we move on?
Some of the RPGs back in those days, some RPGs did one thing, some RPGs did another, and Faria does that thing too, where as you kill monsters and collect a lot of gold, you start traveling. Well, much like a lot of NES games, some games didn't have a very good way of telling you shouldn't go there yet. You need to go here, maybe level up a little bit, then you can come over here. So you die and you lose, I can't remember if it's all or a ass load of your gold. But they had the system in place where you could buy gems. So you could buy like a diamond worth 10,000 gold that you would not lose if you died. So, I mean, you think of it like, oh yeah, we've all played a game where that's been a thing where
Dark Souls. Is this the Dark Souls over the NES?
Well, difficulty-wise, probably. But I mean, like, really, what in Dark Souls can you buy to so you don't lose your soul? I mean, yeah, you can have a great sacrifice, but well, yeah,
really.
So, but it was just kind of a cool feature. Now that I think about it later on,
that is pretty neat.
Instead of losing all my gold going to a new area and trying things out, I can invest it in gems, and then I can just sell them back to merchants who pay me what I paid for them. So,
no, that's actually pretty neat. I dig that.
But yeah, so that would be that's my retro game highlight. I think it's is it the most fantastic game ever? No, but if you like the Zelda combat or Crystallis combat, and you didn't like, oh, good, there's another type of game like that on the Nintendo, I highly suggest checking it out.
Cool, awesome. So then let's move on to some little news bits here. So I think kind of things are a little quiet as far as like super interesting news. And anyways, for me, a lot of things other people have covered like in depth. So, E3 is still kind of fresh. So that's where all the attention is. But there's a couple things I wanted to touch on that I didn't get a chance to talk about last time.
Excellent.
Mainly being, some people might have heard about this, the news regarding Friday the 13th, the game. And not only the game, this affects potential movies and really anything related to the Friday the 13th franchise. Is there was an announcement that the Gun Media put out regarding Friday the 13th, the game. They've had this roadmap for a while where they're like kind of these are our planned updates and this character's coming out, and hey, they're like, oh, we're doing currently beta testing on Ultra Jason, who is the Jason from Jason X, Jason in space, if you were. And that was going to be the next Jason character introduced to the game. And they're like, yeah, so there's not going to be any more updates to the Friday the 13th the game because there's a current legal battle going on regarding the license to the franchise or the rights. Essentially, the guy who wrote the original Friday the 13th, I think the screenplay, is basically trying to get all the rights from Sean Cunningham, who was the original director and kind of most known for the Friday the 13th series. This guy's trying to basically get the rights from him and the studios, so essentially he gets the claim to everything and royalties and stuff like that. So while that's going on, nothing can be done in regards to Friday the 13th. So no more updates for the game. For new content, anyways, they'll do bug fixes, but then there's also no more Friday the 13th movies in the foreseeable future, which sucks because I heard there was one that was kind of like in production or pre-production or something. So lame.
Yeah, that does suck.
Yeah, I mean, basically, here's a guy who probably made a poor business decision at some point, and now he's trying to resend on that and basically ruin everything for everybody because he needs some money.
Well, that's usually what ruins things. Is it's not nobody really cares about the rights of it, but they're like, oh, it's popular and making money. Where's my money from it? Like, here we go.
And really, my question was, it's been like 30 years now. Like, why hasn't this been an issue at any point up until now? I guess I don't know the entire context. Like, we don't know if he was like duped or tricked or anything, or any shady dealings going on. But for the most part, it kind of sounds like this guy is just kind of trying to use legal loopholes to get a paycheck. So
I wonder if it's almost kind of like on par, like the old Duke Nukem Forever thing, where this company has this partial rights, and then they sold to this company, but then that company didn't do anything, and it gets so tangled up. You're like, where does it start and where does it end?
Yeah.
Because they what was it? I forget who did it, but yeah, I mean, they rebooted Friday the 13th. I didn't care for that new version. I mean, it's been quite a few years even for that, but I didn't care for it. But
yeah, I'm there with you on that. I'm no stranger to Friday the 13th. I've talked about it ad nauseum. I love the series. I love the game. I would still say if anybody has not checked out the game and you've had interest, the game is still going. There's still people playing. Not huge numbers playing the game, but you will have no problems finding other people to play with. I still fire it up here and there. Just, I don't really want to commit to any solid gaming experience, so I'm just going to log on to Friday 13th to play a couple rounds for like a half an hour or something. Still a fun game. Just unfortunate that we won't see possibly any more content for it, which is a bummer because I was pretty stoked for Jason X to be added.
Well, and I mean, and going with that, I would be highly disappointed. I mean, I haven't played, but I have a good amount of friends who played it, and I watch them. It's fun to watch. I mean, there's a lot of games where if someone's like playing Final Fantasy VII, hey, want to watch me play this? Not really, because you're going to be grinding levels, and I don't. But Friday the 13th was a game like you could be a passive, watching and be like, this is entertaining, And so to say that, to see the new Jason come out, if one of his kills aren't putting you in a sleeping bag and beating you against a tree, I'd be like, nope, not worth it.
Well, that's actually been a kill in the game since the beginning. As long as if a counselor hides in a sleeping bag, the Jason could, they would hide in a tent, and then if Jason would find him in the tent, he would drag out the sleeping bag and smash him.
I guess my friends never got that to happen then, because
there's a lot of environmental kills that don't happen very often, because most people don't hide in tents because it's usually not super effective unless you're playing like a good stealth character and you have like low fear and stuff like that. There's some there's like some mechanics that work behind the game that you don't like see. That kind of play factor into like if Jason can spot you from all the way across the map kind of stuff, because you like when your characters get freaked out, like they have essentially fear. So if you're in a house, the house will light up red for Jason.
Mm-hmm.
So he can be like, oh, there's somebody there, and then he has to go in the house to find him. Which same thing will happen with tents and like other little hiding spots sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Which is pretty neat. I think it's a cool mechanic because, how does Jason? Jason doesn't always know as you are, but sometimes when you get into the height of the moment and these characters are like freaking out and stuff, like why is Jason always able to track him in the movies? And I thought this was a cool way to kind of implement that concept into a game aspect.
Well, that clears it up for me because I didn't know that. I would watch them, and pretty much when my friends would play, they'd be like, I got to run and find the gas can for the boat, or I got to find the keys to the car. Like they didn't care what they were doing. They were just trying to find those things as fast as possible or call the cops so that the cops will come. And
yeah, there's various things that will alert Jason to people's presence. Like if they're running, the proximity mic chat I thought was really cool.
Yeah,
where it's not like everybody can hear you. It's only people in certain distances.
Until you get a walkie-talkie, is it, I believe?
Yeah. Well, walkie-talkies will let you communicate with any other consoler that has a walkie-talkie. Mm-hmm. And then as the people are talking, that will have proximity chat. But you can also just talk to people, like if they're close to you, if they don't have a walkie-talkie. You can't separate the two. Like you can't just talk on the walkie-talkie and not talk like in your immediate proximity because characters. Yeah, just other cool stuff. So
yeah.
But it sucks. No updates. Boo. Still awesome game.
Yeah, it sucks when our culture is stopped by someone who's like, I need a couple shekels. So.
Yeah. For sure. Then another just kind of little mention that I think it's kind of funny. At this kind of cool at the same time. Some people are like freaked out because they're like, what the hell is this? And other people are embracing it. But a new Overwatch hero has been announced. There's been some like rumors of like some other characters, but they just announced a character called the Wrecking Ball, which is essentially a quadruped ball that's controlled by a hamster. And people are like, what the hell is this? What do we got? Super hamsters in the game. Well, here's a game where you can play as an intelligent gorilla. It works, and like they how they handle the lore. They got the like lore video out already, so it's not like too crazy out there. I mean, it's Overwatch. It's fun. I think looks like it could be an interesting hero. I think he might be available in the PTR, the public test realm, but I'm not 100% on that. But yeah, another interesting character is it's tank based character, so more variety I think is always a good thing, especially when it comes to Blizzard games. They do all this content for free when every other company will nickel and dime you, so I think it's awesome.
I mean, it's a hamster. I mean, come on. Yeah. I mean, come on.
Really a hamster? Really? There's been a bunch of rumors going on for a while about. I'm not sure how people found this because there's all kinds of like weird, like little lore clues, and people do like the like data mining in the game code to find things because a lot of developers would like put secrets, like Valve and Blizzard especially, like put all kinds of secrets like in game code and stuff. It's crazy. Some of the stuff that these gamers will the lengths they'll go to. But there's all this talks about a cat that uses a rocket pack. So that could be potentially a character in the future. So who knows?
It's ridiculous, but you know what? It's fitting, like you say, when you have an intelligent gorilla, and so it's like you can't really knock it. Be like, why is there a hamster operating that? Why not? It's video games.
Why not? Exactly. And then not a whole lot to say, but it might be too late at this point if you didn't know. But the NES Classic had its restock today.
Yay!
And it sounds like it was restocked pretty well. I was hearing a lot of stores had like 20 to 50 of these come into stock. I've seen a lot of people picking them up that weren't able to get them before. I know just a few hours ago, Best Buy still had them, at least on their website.
Good.
But at the same time, I was seeing people trying to scalp these things already.
Shocking.
Yeah. There was actually a guy in the Minnesota collectors group, not our like exclusive group, the cool Minnesota collectors and gamers group, but basically the big one that's kind of open for everybody. There's some guy this afternoon who had just went to the store. He bought at least one, and then he immediately posted on Facebook. He was like $90. It's like it's in. You could and then fortunately, we still have one cool admin in that group, and I sent him a message. I was like, "Hey," and he's like, "I got this." Delete.
Good.
Boom. Yeah, because
unfortunately, it's a situation where, you know, I mean, like me and you and some of our friends, we're always on top of things. Like, we know, like, hey, the NES Classic got restocked. You know, don't pay scalper prices. But there are people out there that are like, oh my God, finally one came back. I my chance to get one. I'll pay whatever they want. Like, no, don't educate yourself.
Yeah. So hopefully everybody who wanted one, that's been like eager to get one, was able to get one. Otherwise, you know, just take a little bit of time, look around, and don't pay scalper prices, because for those that are probably high right now, I'd imagine they're probably going to hit that bubble because they're widely available to some extent. And hopefully, like, these guys who are selling them for like $90 and should have to drop the price at least down to 60.
Yeah, I mean, when Nintendo did this, what was it, last year or 2 years ago, when they brought the, you know, that original NES Classic out?
I mean, it was last year.
It was last year, yeah, because I lost my time frame.
Early last year, I think.
Because the NES Classic came out so fast after it.
Yeah.
And then, kind of to add on that, I keep hearing rumblings. I mean, has it been officially announced or something of that nature that they're going to do like a 64 Classic?
There's the rumor mill. Apparently there was some patents Nintendo filed.
Okay.
So it's a strong possibility. It's going to be quite the package. I mean, I'd imagine they're only going to, if they do a 64 one, they're only going to sell it with one controller. So you're going to have to buy 4 controllers off the bat, and you know they're not going to sell you controllers for $10.
Not for if it's a 64 type.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting, and like I know as is, and maybe this is just me not knowing enough information, but I do hear that emulating 64 games is still can be challenging, and I don't know if it's like hardware limited or if it's just like the back end that people have been using for emulators and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I've heard other people like, oh yeah, I run 64 games just fine. So it'll be interesting because they'll probably have. I mean, I don't imagine the hardware that they use for the NES or the SNES Classic is going to work for the 64. Actually, I think Jason, or no, so maybe it's John Riggs. Actually, I think John Riggs did a video where he tried to put some 64 ROMs on the NES Classic, and then they were just like stutter, like 2 frames a second kind of stuff.
Fall down, go boom.
Yeah, essentially. But you know, I think it's kind of neat. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you could just emulate or just pick up a RetroPie or something. But yeah, sure you can. But these, I think the novelty is part of this. And especially us being collectors, I think me personally, I'm a sucker. So when they do things like this, officially branded, whatever, I don't love Nintendo anymore by any means, but I love the NES and Super Nintendo, and a little convenient box I can take around, and our friends come over and see it and they'll be like, oh hey, let's play this. And on yeah, sure, I can hook up like my retro systems and stuff, but it's nice to be able to just plug this thing in, nice upscale to HD. And
well, and I hate to sound kind of like a gaming hippie where it's like, I was gaming before gaming was cool, but it's kind of nice to see our, whether you want to call it nerd culture or gaming culture, it's kind of nice to see it culminate back into hitting nostalgia strings for people that don't collect, that don't like me. Even for me and you, differences.
Oh
like
yeah,
you have an the NES Classic and an SNES Classic, if I'm correct.
yes.
I believe you have both. And I remember you asking me, like, aren't you going to get one? I'm like, no. I mean, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but at one time, up until recently, I was only like 4 games away from a complete NES set of licensed titles. Not everyone, but I was like, if I want to play that game, I'll just hook up my NES.
You got the nice HDMI mod NES too.
Yeah, I got an HDMI modded toaster, and then I have a RGB modded top loader, and so I'm just like, I can hook them up to any TV and let's go. I prefer the HDMI one because it looks pretty, but I was just like, it's just a bauble on the shelf. I have enough
essentially
shelf dressing. So, but it was good to see this come out and be like, and people were just losing. I mean, because there were generally people that were like, I want one, but I have to pay a scalper $200 to play these 30 games. I mean, and we're talking about the people that aren't looking up YouTube videos to mod them to add 500 more games onto it and emulate it. So. Yeah,
typically, a lot of people I saw who like don't even really play video games. Like,
yeah,
it's kind of neat. I am still curious to because there was a pretty big amount of a hype for the NES Classic and the SNES Classic, and I kind of wonder those people who weren't gamers who did just kind of pick these up for nostalgia reasons, like if they're actually still kind of playing these like a year later, or if it was just like a quick little fad, revisit some nostalgia, and then they just kind of move on. And
yeah, I mean, even if it is though, it's just good to see the classic still appreciated.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, the Mario Brothers. It was odd that the NES Classic chose Super C over Contra. That one, I was like, there must have been a licensing or something there.
Yeah.
Good old Konami.
Yeah. So, yeah, that is neat. And then you had just a little mention that you wanted to make regarding Dragon Quest XI.
Yeah, like I say, having to, fill the shoes of Jason, who I don't think I could do. He's too cool. I mean, he's Canadian on top of it. I mean, come on. I'm super excited. I'm a huge Dragon Quest fan, and even Church here was like, I've been told by so many people I have to play 8 on the PS2, or you can play it on the the 3DS, and he should. I mean, get ready to sink some hours into it. It's not like, oh boy, that was a great weekend game. I'd suggest, like, no, you better be putting the nose to the grindstone. But I love the fact that this game series doesn't really change anything. They don't really. They know what their audience is, and the audience knows what their games are. There's no like, oh geez, from 6 to 7 they really changed all these mechanics and I don't like it anymore. How like Final Fantasy's been doing that for the last 5 years, where like you had 10, 10-2, and then 12. I'm skipping 11 and 14 because those are MMOs, they're their own world. But and then you got to 13 and it was like, well,
completely different.
Yeah, I was like, I as a diehard gamer and a diehard fan of Square Enix, I like you trying new things, but you have deviated so far from what I'm used to. I don't even know what you're trying to do anymore. Like, you're too artsy for me. Dragon Quest goes, nope. This is what you've come to expect. This is what we're going to give you. What can we do to better it? Better graphics, better voiceover work, a world that you're immersive in, and characters you might like. But otherwise, it sticks to the attack, defense, you've attacked. Now stand there and wait for the slime to smack you back.
Yep.
It's grindy. Well, I shouldn't say maybe 11 they changed that, but Dragon Quest usually has a pretty good history of being, you might have to spend a half an hour grinding a couple levels or getting enough gold to buy the next set of armor and weapons from the next town. So,
yeah, and I don't mind light grinding. It's just like where you have to do like hours of grinding. Like, that's why I'll probably, maybe the remake for the 3DS or whatever, but like Dragon Quest 7, I hear everybody has said, like, if you don't like grinding, do not play 7, because it's like all that game is grinding. But I can handle a little bit. Like, even like while playing Secret of Mana 2, Seeking Densetsu 3, like, just kind of like original Secret of Mana, pretty much every new town you come to, there's going to be a merchant that has like slightly better gear.
Yep.
There's been plenty of times where I walked into this town and it's like, I cannot afford any of this. So now I got to go out and like, find a spot and kind of grind for like half an hour or so I can buy all the gear. And I don't mind that. It's just like if it's like, I don't know, a lot.
Well, and I notice certain games, like when they get redone, like I know, like you were saying, like you don't like grinding, don't play Dragon Quest VII, and I know they fixed a lot of those in the DS remake. But like I've also been kind of I didn't bring it up as like game I'm playing, because it's more like I dabble here and there. I got the Final Fantasy VII, just basically the cleaned up PC version that they put out on PS4.
Yeah.
Well, and they added in a like '3 mode. You just push your left joystick and it speeds it up. So even if you do grind, you're making it lightning quick instead of waiting to grind. So
yeah, they did that with the 12 remake too, I believe.
Did they?
Yeah, I think that's
I own that, but I didn't know that.
That's just like a complete like fast forward thing where you can just like play the whole game like in fast forwarded. It's like
never mind. You're right. Yep, I remember now. Yep.
Which is kind of neat, because you don't have to use it if you like grinding and you like taking your time, like you totally can. But there are people who are like, if I could just fast forward through this, I would totally play it. And hey, bam, now you can do it. Especially when it comes to remakes, like I don't know. If it was like the like when they released Dragon Quest XI, they're like, hey, if you don't want, you can just turn on this option, skip all the battles. It's like, I think that's a little much, But
yeah, then it's like, then what are you playing this game for?
Yeah, which I think there was some game recently where they.
You are right. Yeah, you could just turn it off. Well, I mean, like the Final Fantasy VII thing, you can actually turn off encounters.
Ugh.
Because then you could just push the one button to power level. Well, not power level, but you're no matter what damage you take, you instantly regen it, and your limit breaks are always full.
Yeah. I guess. I mean, if that's what it takes to get some people to play these games, ultimately it's kind of like I'm not so sure about Dragon Quest just because I'm not very familiar with the series. I've only played the first one. I know a little bit, but I think the story a lot of times is like the coolest part about these games. Like the gameplay is fun, that kind of keeps you entertained and stuff. But kind of the story is the driving factor. Unless like you're just in it for the grinding, I guess that could be like, so if the story's there and somebody doesn't like grinding and they don't have to do it, inclusion, I guess it's kind of the PC thing nowadays. But
I almost wonder if it runs into something of this nature where I mean, you're close in age to me. I mean, have you ever found yourself ever asking, like, where did I find time when I was in my teens to like play these like 80-hour game? I don't know how many role-playing games you played when you were younger, but like I find myself asking, like, how did I have time to beat Final Fantasy VII and get everything ever and put like 120 hours into it? Now I'm an adult. I have all this disposable income. Me personally, I don't have kids or anything, so I still have a good chunk of time.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm sitting there going, how did I beat these games? Like, I sit down now, I'm like, I don't have 8 hours anymore to just, unless it's on the weekends, of course. But
yeah,
do you find yourself ever having that problem?
I've actually thought about that, and that is a very common thought a lot of people have at our age, because a lot of people have kids and we all have jobs and stuff. But actually, I don't know. I'm not sure if my amount of time that I game has really changed a whole lot. When I was a kid, I played games all the time, but I had friends. I went out, played with friends and did all that. And I think kind of maybe the difference for me anyways, from when I was a kid to now was my access to games was a lot more limited when I was a kid. So when I had a game, like that's like the game I had for like months and months. So that's all I had to play. So, being able to stretch out, 100 hours, like, but I do think there was something to it, because I think that having less responsibilities as a kid did allow for extra gaming time, because Final Fantasy VI, I played through that, many times. Chrono Trigger, played through that many times. Like, I'm not exactly sure how I made all that time, because I know, like, I think the first time I played through Final Fantasy VI, I put like 80, 85 hours into it or something.
Mhm.
And then kind of what I was doing with each initial following playthrough as I was trying to reduce that time a lot.
Yep.
Like doing the rapids level up trick where you hold down, you just
tape down the 2 buttons and then go do something for a couple hours.
Stuff like that. So I could try to play through this entire game while still getting all the characters and getting all the spells up, and stuff like that. And quickest amount of time was just something I had fun doing, because that was my favorite game at the time, and I didn't have a lot of games. But I don't know. I mean, there's, especially on the weekends, sometimes like I can, especially lately, just because I haven't been doing much. I've kind of been like on an unofficial sort of like YouTube break, just kind of like rebuilding my ambition. But like some of these weekends, hell, especially with like Dark Souls Remastered, there's I think a weekend where I probably played it for like 12 hours plus, like 2
As
days.
you should. As you should.
Exactly. Which, I like being able to do that.
Mm.
But one thing that I do notice when I go in these like hard binge sessions is like I won't remember as much, like some like story elements, or like I just ran through this whole area. Like, what was that area? Like, I don't remember anything about it. Which just happened to me a few times. Like, I really have to think about like, okay, what boss did I just fight? Like, when people ask me, that's one thing I always struggle with the From Software games, is when people ask me like, oh, what's your favorite boss? Or like, oh, these bosses, or what you think about this boss? And it's like, I binge played so much, like I don't remember the finer details of some of these boss battles. Like, it's almost like I'm like, what is it? Where you're like removed from your body and you're like watching yourself play, kind of thing.
Out of body experience.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But, I mean, that also might speak to some of the things where just, you subconsciously were just like, I did it, moving on, because it wasn't maybe that memorable. I mean, you take something like Ornstein and Sma fight, you're like, oh my God, the first time I had to fight 2 bosses at the same time, compared to maybe like Quelaag, who's just a spider chick.
Yes. Yep. So, I think that about does it for our news topics here. I'm just double checking something really quick, because I think I forgot the community question, which I'm pretty sure, because I didn't actually put it on the outline for the last episode, but I think I was just asking people what their kind of favorite games from E3 were.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to check on that real quick. So I'm just pulling up the previous episode here. Bear with me, everybody. Sorry.
No, that's fine. But the other thing, like how you talked about earlier, how you stated, when you were binging Dark Souls Remastered, you're like, oh, I'd do other things, like maybe watching something on YouTube or Netflix. You're like, I could be playing Dark Souls right now. That's kind of how I felt. Kind of how I relate it to, like, how did I have time for these games back then? Because it's like, let's say I keep using it. It's just an easy thing to go to. Is like Final Fantasy VII. I'll jump on my PS4, boot it up, start playing, and I'm like, God, I could be playing Tomb Raider right now, or I could be farming something on Final Fantasy Online or something. And it just like, that's what my problem is. Like, I really want to play through this RPG. I know I have another 50 hours coming, but I could be playing that other game, whatever the other game may be.
Yeah. So the like I said, the community question for last week was basically just related to E3, kind of what people what stood out from them for E3. So of course I shared my thoughts, I think, pretty extensively especially doing my top 5. Last of Us Part 2 was kind of my big one. And since you are joining us with this one, why not? I don't mean to throw you in the
again. Trial by fire here. Trial by fire.
What just any particular games that like you're like super excited for that you saw at E3?
So I'll just go ahead and say my top one out of all the ones I saw. Obviously Dragon Quest 11. It's been too many years since we got the last one, and so that I'm super excited for.
Sweet.
I at first was super excited to hear about Fallout 76, but as they're slowly, we're learning a bit more, and more. I'm like, I'm not going to say it's bad. It was just like, oh my god, new Fallout.
I don't know. I need to see more because
exactly,
like there's some things that sound like it couldn't be cool, but then like little bits of information keep coming out, and it's like, okay, that might make up for this lacking aspect or something. I got the collector's edition on pre-order right now.
Excellent.
But if it looks like I'm just absolutely not going to enjoy the game, most likely I will cancel that because it's a pretty pricey collector's edition.
And they said they're having a beta for it, or
yes.
So there's going to be able to try it out, and I'll definitely be on board for that because I just like. I'm not a very big PvPer. I don't like to play games, and there's always some dude who's like, "Oh, I'm just going to do nothing but screw with you because."
Yeah.
Like no.
Yeah. That's my concern. Being a survival game, like I haven't played stuff like Rust or Ark, games like that. I've watched things. I've had friends that have played those games, so I kind of know a lot about them. And I don't know. Just being Fallout, is that enough for me to play one of those games, or is there going to be a lot more to it? Which kind of sounds like there will. It does sound like there will be questing, not necessarily given by like human NPCs, but it sounds like there's probably going to be robot NPCs, and maybe we'll have like ghouls or super mutants doing quests and stuff too. I just need to see more.
Exactly. So I'm I'm a mixed bag on that. Like, co-op Fallout, sweet, I can get a couple buddies and we can have a really good time. That'll be awesome. But like I say, I don't want to play a game like even something like Dark Souls-ish where I'm doing my thing, and you've been invaded by this guy. It's like, I don't want to fight you. I just want to play the game. Or I wanted to invite some people to play the game with. Anyway, so 76 is up in the air. The new Tomb Raider, obviously, like that looks excelente.
Yeah.
And
they didn't even need to show me anything. Essentially, Tomb Raider.
Sold. I already got the hard steel book on Amazon and pre-ordered because there's just a lot. Like September alone is a busy month.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't be ordering every collector's edition, so I got my collector's edition for Dragon Quest 11 pre-ordered and the steel book for Tomb Raider.
Yeah, I haven't pre-ordered anything for Tomb Raider yet, just because I was upset at the fact that they were doing another one of those. Here's 5 different versions, sort of thing, and then like they have a collector's edition, but you can only get it from the
Square Enix website.
The website, and
same with Dragon Quest.
Dragon Quest, I'll make an exception with, but a lot of times I don't know. I don't like. I really wish they'd just put it on Amazon because I don't want to have to pay $20 extra shipping. And,
Square Enix is notorious for that.
Terrible shipping. They don't have good tracking.
No, they don't.
And what was the other thing? Oh, and that I can't get like my Prime discount or something.
Well, to be fair though. Amazon doesn't do Prime discount on collector's editions anymore, remember?
That's what I hear. And I guess I haven't really got a collector's edition in a while.
So I know when people make that comment, I'm like, it's been a couple months since or maybe even longer. I'm like, collector's editions are no longer part of that. So,
yeah.
But I think the Steelbook version of Tomb Raider, that applies because it's just you don't get any super extras. Just I like Steelbooks.
Yeah, for sure. So then, let's see. Checking comments for what people were excited for, and Black Metal Gamer. Always appreciate his comments. He said Resident Evil 2 is his number one E3 game shown. It says he's so moist inside just thinking about it. He wants that game deep in him. And I can pretty much agree on my end of that too. I'm super stoked for Resident Evil 2 remake.
I wonder if he wants a Jill sandwich.
Make a Jill sandwich. And then let's see. I thought he had another one, but I must have misread. Down Phoenix said that Ghost of Tsushima was probably his most hyped game. He just loved the art style, and the cinematography reminded him of Akira Kurosawa stuff like Seven Samurai. Totally agree. Totally agree. And then, though he wasn't able to make it for the last episode, I'm super glad Jason, Corpse Flood Gaming, left a comment getting in his top 5. So I'll just mention his top 5. He said number 1, or I don't know. I'm kind of weird when it comes to top 5s. I honestly, I always wish lists were in descending order, or descending. They'll go 1 to 5 instead of 5 to 1. For some reason, just the way my brain works, like I have an easier time saying this game is better than the second game that I mentioned instead of the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Weird. But he said his number 5 was Cyberpunk 2077, 4 Doom Eternal, 3 Fire Emblem, 3 Houses, 2 Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, and 1 Devil May Cry 5.
Meh.
Which I'm not big on Devil May Cry. I know Jason is a big Devil May Cry fan.
Oh, okay.
So for people who are Devil May Cry fans, I mean, 5 is exactly what they wanted. Especially after DMC kind of like tried to like reboot it. And then he said honorable mentions: Resident Evil 2, Sea of Solitude, Gears 5, Battletoads, and Deracine.
And see, I have to say, I'm actually shocked by his honorable mentions. I'm surprised RE2 didn't make it up there, because when we were out in Milwaukee, he was like, I got to find Resident Evil this and that. He was like hardcore about finding this Resident Evil games. I'm like, that's an honorable mention for him? That just seems out of place. But I mean, wow. Yeah,
I'd be interested to hear more of his thoughts on that, which I hadn't asked more of his thoughts on that. So maybe I should. Maybe I can comment on that. And let's see. Just checking real quick. I didn't have this organized very well beforehand, and I think the only other comment we got was from Do You Nerd? Great channel. Anybody who's not familiar, I recommend checking it out. They do a lot of fun, different kind of videos, or good variety. And they said they're pretty interested in the new Assassin's Creed, which would be Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Greek-based Assassin's Creed. I'm not much of an Assassin's Creed guy myself, but I will say Black Flag and Origins did look pretty cool. I heard Black Flag or whatever.
Yeah. I think that's probably one of the more noticeable or memorable ones out of the last couple that people really talked about. Yeah. I'm like you. I got fatigued out. I played, I think, up till past Brotherhood, and I'm just like, the gameplay for me, the first 2, the gameplay was fine, and then after that, it was the story. Like, I was like, this story is just awesome. I want to know what's going on. And then after, I'm like, you guys are just going to pump one of these. This is a Call of Duty, isn't it? You're just going to put out one every year, and I'm like, I'm done. I can't. I just can't.
It was interesting because they were like, okay, we're gonna slow down here. We know we've been throwing these Assassin's Creed games out, so we're gonna go back to the regular every other year. We're gonna wait 2 years to put out Origins. They put out Origins, and they're like, screw that. We're putting out Odyssey next year. So
it's like, I've talked to people that have played them. I'm just like, okay, this is what I know the story, and then they'll fill me, and I'm just like, okay, so the story went completely in a in the direction I didn't care for. So I'm glad people are excited for Assassin's Creed if that's their jam. Hey, it's kind of like how I talk about sports games. Not my cup of tea, but I don't fault anybody for liking a certain game.
I mean, I wouldn't complain if WayForward want to do yearly releases for Shantae games. But,
yeah. Oh darn. Please don't do that.
Yeah. So then for the community question for this episode, which we will cover next week, was a question left by Black Metal Gamer, who always has some great questions for the community question segment. And he says, what are your favorite bonus stages in games? And what modern game IP would you want to have a bonus stage? So, like I said, this is just the question, so we can ponder this till the next episode. So anybody listening, I would love to hear your thoughts on what your favorite bonus stages are and what are some games, modern games that would want to have bonus stages in.
The reason I was laughing is I instantly thought of something. It was the first thing that popped in my head, of a Dark Souls bonus stage. I don't know what it would be, but it'd just be hilarious one way or the other.
It would have to be ridiculous. Like, I almost think of like Whimsyshire from Diablo 3.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with that, unicorns and rainbows and teddy bears, like something just like completely out of character. or like, here's a Japanese developed game. Let's stick Japanese, go into this bonus area, colors and everything, and like anime waifus or something. Like go for this like completely like grim dark, like just like death and desolation world, to here's like a knockoff, like what is that Miku, whatever, the Vocaloid.
Mm-hmm.
Just throw that in there with some like J-pop or something, like just
and you just hack her to pieces.
Yeah. What?
Oh, that's a good question though. I'll have to ponder that, because it's kind of something you think of, like, it was a cool bonus stage, but you don't really like, let's talk about bonus stages today.
Yeah.
So definitely a good question.
Yeah, so then I know we're probably going a little long for this episode, but is what it is. But I've really, really been wanting to get back into talking about upcoming games that are coming out in the next couple weeks. So I just want to kind of cover that really quick. Any mentions of games that we think look cool that are coming out in the next couple weeks, or we might be picking up. Just for anybody who might not be kind of keeping up on things, maybe I can remind you that something neat's coming out. So we are looking at essentially, I think, the 29th through the 13th of July. And it seems like there's a lot of ports, or I could be wrong. I'm not sure if you're checking out the list, but more stuff coming to the Switch. They got the Crash Insane Trilogy just came out today for the Switch. Wolfenstein 2 as well. So that is neat. And then let's see, we got Runbow, which I think it was a PC game for the Switch. There's a sequel to Shining Resonance Refrain coming out on the 10th. And then you might know more about this one. There's a Ys game, Memories of Salsetta.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a port?
That would be a port, yes. That originally came out on the Vita. It's Vita exclusive.
Okay, so that is coming out for PC. So that's neat. It looks like Steam's actually getting a lot of the Ys games. So I think that's pretty neat, because I don't know. I think especially when it comes to JRPGs, like they've really neglected the PC market, which is a shame, because it's kind of like, I mean, Steam's huge. You can't deny.
True. I think what it is more, though, not to go too long on it, but I think it's more of a Japanese developer thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you had 15 just come out with the Royal Edition, and that really only shines on a high-end PC. And
sure, yeah.
I mean, reading the whole story behind that is, I mean, they basically come out and say that it's one thing to develop a game for a console, because once it's made, it plays the same on every, like, your PS4, my PS4, it plays the same. PCs, you have to make it so it can play on somewhat low-end geared PC up to the most beastly gaming PC. And they're just like,
Yeah, there's a little bit more to the development there for sure.
Yeah.
But I think really the from what I can tell, kind of like the big release, really the only like truly notable release in the next couple weeks is Octopath Traveler for the Switch, which is coming out on July 13th. Which unfortunately I do not have a Switch, and that is a game I am super interested in checking out.
Yeah, it does look good, and it's still not enough to make me buy a Switch. So
yeah, did you have a Switch for a little bit?
No.
Okay,
I had a Wii. Back a while, I had a Wii U, sold it, and then I got it back. So I'm like, I like the Wii U.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm still not feeling too bad about not owning a Switch, but there's definitely some games on there if I had a Switch, I would be getting for sure, like Octopath and a Bayonetta 3 when that comes out. Although I still need to play 2 now that I got a Wii U.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, and like you say, a lot of like I'm looking at the list, like you say, and like Code of Princess EX. That's an original. I mean, that came out on the 3DS, so they're just porting it. I know they're adding some stuff to it for the Switch. Mm. So, to try to make this as quick as possible, I like that the Switch is getting all these third-party games just thrown at it, because I mean, we all, for most people, if you realize Nintendo's not very good with third parties. They like to be very, we make everything in-house and our games are the best.
Yeah.
And now it just seems like the Switch, they just kind of went, let everyone else do our work for us.
Well, and I mean, a lot of people blame the Wii U. It's quote-unquote failure on its naming scheme, but I would say it's more to do with their third-party support. And I think they're trying to make up for it. I think the only thing that bothers me is I see this a lot online. I mean, comment sections are always mostly just people shit posting and being
that happens on the internet,
being emotional and whatever. But and this might be just me, but and it might be a strong word, but I kind of feel like there's it's like the Switch entitlement syndrome, where like if you own a Switch, you have to demand every single game be ported to the Switch because you own a Switch.
I like that.
And I mean, I see that a lot, especially for Switch owners, where before, other systems, Wii U, Wii, GameCube, whatever, people would be like, oh man, that game's not being released for the PlayStation 3. And people would be like, well, if you wanted it, you should get a Wii or something. And it's like, I don't know, it's just like hypocrisy thing that's just kind of been around for a long time. And now I'm starting to see, I guess I'm getting a little salty that, these guys are like, put all these games on the Switch. And then like a game gets, like a third party game gets made exclusively from the Switch. And when people are like, oh, you should port that to the PS4, people are like, no, you should buy a Switch if you want to play this game.
No, I was going to say that's exactly it. It's Nintendo. The Nintendo, I hate this word, but it's a quick play. The fanboys on Nintendo are probably I'd say the most toxic yet most like rabid. For Nintendo can do no wrong, and believe you me, if we made a ranting section on this podcast, I could go on about Nintendo and the things I hate that they do compared to all the good things.
And this is not a unfamiliar topic to the Game Tenants podcast, but of course there's fanboys for everything.
Of course, yes.
Xbox, but those Nintendo ones, they're pretty rabid, as you said.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So other than that, like I said, that's pretty much what's coming out in the next couple weeks. Of course, the summer is always kind of like a slower season as everything's gearing up for this fall. And much like last year, this fall's, and as you said too, there's a lot of stuff coming out. So
it's going to be a busy end of the year. Oof.
Yeah, so then I guess with that, we'll kind of go into a little closing segment here. And it's just kind of like what we got coming up here in the next couple weeks, basically until our next episode of the podcast. So what do you got coming up? I know you kind of touched on this a little bit, but what do you plan on playing in the next couple weeks?
Well, I know you and the people listening are going to be shocked to hear this, but probably a little Final Fantasy 14.
What?
I know. It's like the game never ends. Weird. Now that you told me about the different ending paths in Bloodstained, I might jump on that a little bit more and see what the different endings or what more I can find out. Because, like I said, the game's it's a pleasure to play. It really is. Like, it's smooth. I like the character transitions, so really enjoyable. So I might dig into that more. I might drag you into Dark Souls Remaster since I know you got it on the PS4. Help me clear up the rest of that so I can be like, yay, I beat it again.
Yeah, possible. Well, I started New Game Plus too, so I can get to a lot of those end areas, but
well, luckily you only have to be in the zone. You don't have to beat the monsters I've beaten.
Right.
So
yeah.
But so I'll probably jump on that a little bit. And like I say, I'm just gonna try to start that retro challenge. So I might be booting up the old Suikoden 2 here.
Yeah, that's what I really need to play that. I want to replay the first one because it's been so long since I played it, but I've never played the rest of the series. And I know 2 is really expensive.
Well, luckily it's actually come down a lot. Like,
yeah.
I mean, there was a point where it was almost $300, and now it's kind of, I think it's actually like floating around the 100 to under 100 mark.
Oh, really?
I believe so. Like, games are coming down. Like, I didn't think they would come down this fast, but you're seeing a lot of like bigger priced games. I mean, they're not like dropping like a rock, but they're slowly getting chipped down because people have them. So not a lot of people are hot after them anymore.
Yep.
But it's a small comment to that is, as being a friend of yours, and the amount of times when it comes to RPGs, you're like, a lot of people told me I should play that. A lot of people told me I should play that. A lot of people, like, there's almost major role playing games. You're like, I hear good things about that. I've been told I should play that. So,
well, really, the main problem I had, and I've kind of talked about this before, is like really from like 2000 to like 2010, like I pretty much only played like online PC games. So there's like 10 years of console games that I just didn't play. And it kind of, was right at the end of the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, especially. Like, I mean, I still played games, but I didn't play as much as I wanted to. And then there was the whole Final Fantasy X thing. It touched me inappropriately, and that whole story, as we know. So I'm trying, like, I've only recently got back into JRPGs, and when you want to try to catch up on a particular genre, like JRPGs is definitely the most challenging one, being that so many of these games are incredibly long.
Well, and just like the other thing is, like, there's certain games where you're just like, you know what, I don't want to put in a huge session tonight or today, so I just want to jump in something, play for half an hour, maybe an hour, and be done with my gaming for the day because I got errands or events to go to. Yeah. JRPGs are not the type of game you're like, I'm just going to jump in and fight monsters for a half an hour and then put it down and go away. Like, it doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. Yeah.
And actually, and that kind of relates to what I was kind of planning on playing next. Like, I know I just played Secret of Mana 2, but kind of for months now, like, I've kind of been planning, like, so there's kind of this gap, July, August, where I could probably squeeze in a big game. So I was kind of trying to decide, like, what I should play. And mainly I've been toying with the ideas of, Jason hooked me up with a Wii U, gave me Breath of the Wild. So I got Breath of the Wild.
Ooh.
I could play that. I was also thinking about maybe Persona 5 because I've heard like nothing but fantastic things.
Yeah, I got to get to that sometime too.
And I've only played the first original Persona for PlayStation 1 Revelations.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know much about, like, I've seen videos and reviews and things like that.
Sure.
And I know the people who are into Persona, like, absolutely love the games. I hear 4 was amazing. I have 4. I haven't played it, of course. So so Breath of the Wild, Persona 5. I was also thinking about Neo for the PlayStation 4, the kind of like Samurai Dark Souls-ish game. And then now, some people might have seen, if they follow me on social media, that I shared a picture that Jason, Corpse Blood Gaming, had come down to the Twin Cities for an unrelated event and stopped by and dropped off a present while I was at work, which was awesome. And he left me Yakuza 0.
He loves those Yakuza games.
And they're the kind of like this I don't like using the word click necessarily, but there's kind of like this click that I'm involved with YouTubers and other gamers and stuff, and these people just love Yakuza. So it's like, well, I got it now. That's an opportunity. People say this is great. It's a good time to jump into the series. So I'm debating. I kind of feel like Jason gave me a Wii U as a gift, so I kind of feel like I should play the Wii U instead of having it sit on the shelf for 2-3 years until I get to like some of these other consoles I have. So I was kind of thinking about Breath of the Wild, because I want to, especially with Breath of the Wild, like I played it for about 10 hours before, when I had visited Jason, and I thought it was pretty awesome, but not as awesome as everybody else thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of want to see it through to kind of see where it goes, because I didn't get to do anything with the beasts or whatever.
Okay.
Only got to do some of the dungeon or the shrines. So I kind of want to see more of the game, so I can kind of be like, I enjoyed it, but I don't think it's as good as everybody else said, because I really feel like that's going to be my opinion on it. But I love when a game exceeds my expectations, and maybe Breath of the Wild will. Or I can say everybody's just a Zelda fanboy, like they are, but it's fine.
I thought you were going to say something like, I've been wrong before, but I was mistaken.
Usually there's that's a weird one, because I usually call it pretty well if I'm going to enjoy a game. Although there have been games where I didn't think I'd enjoy it, and I finally check it out, and I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, that's, like I said, that was my story with Dark Souls. I was like, I'm writing angry emails to the company, and then I try it again. I'm like, okay, this game's cool.
Yeah. So for me, it's basically finishing up Secret of Mana 2, trying to figure out what I'm going to play next. Although, again, I'm looking at these big, long games, and it's like, I could play one really long game, or I could squeeze in 4 more games from my backlog and not feel as horrible about myself. So we'll figure it out. So, anybody listening, let me know your opinions. Be interested to hear what people think, what I should go with next.
Maybe we should add that as a segment to like the beginning of the month podcast, and be like, okay, here are the 3 games me and Church have chosen. You the viewers or listeners vote on which game he has to play, and he can't say no to it.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to be that indecisive, let them decide for you.
I think I just have too many games. Too many games I want to play.
I don't know what that means. Are you even? Are you speaking English?
Well, it's never too many games. It's just I have so many games in my backlog. Sometimes I'm not sure what I want to play next. So yeah. So then I guess as we're wrapping things up here, I just want to let people know how they can potentially get a hold of us. So you don't have any like particular social media accounts besides like a personal Facebook. So I think we both kind of agree for the time being, if anybody wants to communicate with Justin, best place to do it would be for this video, or I guess on YouTube, or of course you can comment on SoundCloud, or you can always pass messages through me. I'm happy to be a middleman, but I think the YouTube comments for the podcast would be the best place to leave any comments or feedback or questions for Justin. Yeah,
like I say, I mean, and if this, people actually care about me and like me and want, if they want actually interaction, I don't see a need for Twitter right now. Especially with like how much crap that can go wrong with you saying the wrong thing. I'm just like, I'll just not be involved. But as long as if it was kept to that, people actually want to interact with me, then I have no problem making a Twitter, and I get to be an old man trying to figure out how Twitter works.
Yeah. I've been there, done that. So, and then I guess however you're listening to the podcast, of course, it is available, the video version on YouTube. Of course, you can listen to it on SoundCloud through the app or the site. Podcast is available via any podcast app that does RSS feeds. So that's most podcast apps for the most part. And then available on iTunes as well. I believe the uploads for iTunes happened really when we kind of first started the podcast, and has been an automatic system. So I hope it's still working, because I wasn't really involved with that portion. And then as far as myself, you can look me up as the Game Grinder on YouTube, as well as Facebook. At _the Game Grinder on Twitter, and then I'm also at the Game Grinder on Instagram. So just look up the Game Grinder and you will find me, no problem. Easy to get a hold of.
Nice.
Yeah. So then I think that is going to do it for this episode of the Game Tenants Podcast. Of course, again, I just want to say huge thanks to Jason for the time that he was able to participate in the podcast. And then, of course, Justin, thanks for stepping in. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this.
Well, thank you for having me. And I do want to say it's sad to see Jason go. He added a lot to the show, and he's a good guy. I've met him in real life, and I wish him the best, and I hope things can change in the future where he can maybe come back.
Yeah, for sure. So then I want to say to everybody else, thank you very much for listening, and we will talk to you all next time.
Later.
See ya.